The first night after my surgery, I realized something terrifying. It wasn't the pain. It wasn't the blood. It was the silence. Because the one person who swore she wouldn't leave already had. My phone buzzed on my nightstand like it was trying to warn me. Not with comfort. Not with concern. With chaos. Dozens of messages. Family group chats exploding. Missed calls stacked like accusations. But none of them were from the person who promised she'd be right beside me when I couldn't even stand on my own. Let me rewind. My name is Elena Moore. I'm 29 years old, a freelance interior designer, and I live alone in a fourth-floor walk-up apartment in Denver. No elevator. Narrow stairs. The kind of place you love until you're told you won't be able to put weight on your left leg for 6 weeks. When my doctor scheduled my hip reconstruction surgery, I did what any grown daughter who still believes in her family does. I called my mom. She sounded sincere. Too sincere. "I'll come for at least a week," she said. "I'll cook. I'll help you shower. I won't let you struggle." I remember exhaling, like my body relaxed before the surgery even happened. Here's the thing about promises. They only matter when keeping them is inconvenient. The surgery itself went fine. Painful, but successful. When I woke up, groggy and shaking, the nurse said, "Your mom just stepped out to grab coffee. She'll be back." That was the last comforting lie I heard for a while. By the time I was discharged, Mom had already packed my fridge with labeled containers, arranged my pillows, kissed my forehead, and told me she'd run out, just for a quick errand. She never came back. 2 days later, I woke up at 3:12 a.m. in a sweat. My leg was on fire. My water bottle was empty. My crutches were just out of reach. I called my mom. Straight to voicemail. I called again. And again. That's when the photos started appearing online. Snow-covered mountains. Cozy cabins. Wine glasses clinking. My mother, my aunt, and my older brother wrapped in ski gear, smiling like teenagers on spring break. No warning. No explanation. When I finally reached my brother, the sound of music and laughter poured through the phone. He didn't even step away. "You'll be fine," he said. "Mom deserves a break too." A break. I hung up and stared at the ceiling, blinking back tears because crying hurt my stitches. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not anger. Not yet. Clarity. Hold on, before we get into the real stuff, I want to know, what are you doing at this exact moment while hearing my voice? Driving? Folding laundry? Lying in bed at 2 a.m.? I read every comment. Back then, I still thought this was a misunderstanding. That maybe Mom would come back early. That maybe my family would realize what they'd done. Instead, the messages started pouring in. Not apologies. Instructions. Make sure you ice every 4 hours. Don't forget your meds. You should be grateful we prepped food. Grateful. That night, I tried to stand up alone. I fell. Hard. My shoulder hit the doorframe. I lay there for 10 minutes, staring at the carpet, thinking, if something really goes wrong, no one will know. And that's when I made my first quiet decision. I stopped asking for help. Not because I didn't need it, but because I was done begging people who only showed up when it was convenient. The next morning, I texted the family group chat one sentence. "Don't worry. I've got it handled." They reacted with heart emojis. Thumbs ups. Relief. They thought the crisis was over. They had no idea it had just begun. Because while they were skiing down mountains, I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every broken promise. Every time I showed up for them, every holiday I rearranged my life for. And slowly, painfully, a plan started forming. Not loud, not messy, silent, calculated. And by the time my mom came home, she wouldn't even realize the ground beneath her had already shifted. The day they posted their last ski photo was the day I stopped being their daughter and became their mirror. Recovery is supposed to be boring. Pain meds, physical therapy videos, daytime TV. But when you're abandoned in the middle of it, boredom turns into awareness. Every hour alone stretches long enough for memories to crawl back. I had nothing but time, and time is dangerous when it's mixed with disappointment. I stopped answering their calls. Not dramatically. Not with speeches. I simply let them ring. Funny thing? No one panicked. No one rushed back. They assumed silence meant I was handling it, just like I said. So I handled it. On the fourth night, I dragged myself to my laptop. Every movement felt like dragging glass through muscle, but I kept going. I opened a spreadsheet. At first, it was just a list. Names, dates, favors. Birthdays I planned. Emergencies I solved. Rent I covered temporarily. Projects I delayed for my brother. Free designs I made for my mom's friends because it would mean so much. The list got long. I realized something that hurt worse than the incision. I had been the reliable one, the fixer, the cushion. And when I finally needed to be carried, they left me at the curb. A message popped up from my mom. "How's the pain today?" I stared at it for a full minute before replying. Manageable. Not a lie. Not the truth. While they wrapped up their vacation, I started doing something new. I stopped cushioning consequences. When my aunt asked if I could quickly redesign her Airbnb listing, I replied, "I'm unavailable." When my brother asked for help covering a shortfall on his credit card, I said, "I can't." Each no felt illegal. Like I was breaking a family law no one ever wrote down, but everyone enforced. Their reactions came fast. Confusion, guilt, subtle irritation. "You seem distant. You're acting different. Is something wrong?" I wanted to scream. "You left me unable to walk." Instead, I typed, just focusing on healing. Which was true, just not in the way they thought. By the time they came home, I had arranged backup care through a local recovery service. I paid out of pocket, painfully expensive, but worth every dollar for what it gave me. Independence and documentation. Every visit was logged, every check-in recorded, every note signed. When my mom finally knocked on my door 10 days later, she brought flowers and a smile that felt rehearsed. She hugged me carefully, then sighed like she was the victim. "That trip got extended," she said. "You know how it is." I nodded. Calm, polite, quiet. She started rearranging my kitchen, commenting on the meals I'd ordered. "You didn't have to spend money on this," she said. "Family helps family." I almost laughed. That night, after she left, I added another column to my spreadsheet. Expectations versus reality. Promises versus actions. I attached screenshots, call logs, dates. This wasn't revenge yet. This was clarity, because I knew something they didn't. In 3 weeks, our entire family would be gathered for my grandmother's 70th birthday. A big one. Speeches, slideshows, toasts. And my mother had already volunteered me to say something heartfelt. I stared at that line in the group chat and felt my pulse slow. They thought I was fragile, dependent, grateful. They had no idea I was documenting everything. In physical therapy, they tell you healing happens in layers. Bone first, then muscle, then trust in your own body. I realized family works the same way. I had healed the bone. I was rebuilding strength. Now I was testing trust. Each unanswered call felt like a rep. Each boundary, a stretch that burned but worked. I practiced speaking calmly in the mirror, timing my breaths, imagining interruptions. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger is loud and sloppy. I was precise. I slept better than I had since surgery, not because the pain was gone, but because the confusion was. For the first time, I knew what this was about to become. Not a confrontation, a revelation. And revelations don't need shouting to land. I wrote notes on index cards, short and clean, so no one could derail me or twist the point away from the truth. I practiced stopping when silence arrived, letting it do the work, on purpose, absolutely intentional. I didn't plan to embarrass them. I planned to let the truth stand up on its own. By the third week, I was walking without crutches, but limping enough to remind everyone I was still recovering. That word became my camouflage. People lower their guard around someone they think is weak. They speak freely. They forget you're listening. My mom started calling every day, not to ask how I felt, to update me on the party. "She's inviting everyone," she said. "Extended family, old friends, We wanted to be special. We. Always we, when it came to appearances. She asked if I was nervous about speaking. I told her no. That surprised her. I could hear it in the pause. She reminded me to keep it light and positive. I agreed. Out loud. Inside, I was arranging facts like dominoes. Physical therapy taught me patience, slow progress, tiny movements repeated until they matter. My plan worked the same way. I didn't rehearse a speech. I curated a moment, one that couldn't be interrupted without looking cruel. 2 days before the party, my brother texted asking if I could help print photos for the slideshow. I replied, already handled. That wasn't a lie. I had printed photos, just not the ones he meant. The morning of the birthday, I woke up calm. That scared me more than nerves. Calm meant commitment. I dressed carefully. Long skirt to hide the brace. Soft sweater. I wanted to look healed, but not healed enough. Relatable. Believable. The venue was my grandmother's favorite restaurant. White tablecloths. String lights. Laughter spilling out the doors. My family greeted me like a survivor returning from war. You look so good, my aunt said. See? She was fine, my brother whispered to my mom. I smiled. Smiles are easy when you're holding something sharp behind your back. Dinner moved fast. Toasts began. Funny stories. Childhood memories. My mom cried twice. When it was my turn, she squeezed my hand like a warning. Say something from the heart, she said. I stood slowly. Let the room quiet. Felt every eye on me. I didn't rush. Silence makes people lean in. I want to talk about recovery, I began. People nodded. They expected inspiration. I learned that healing isn't just physical, I said. It's about learning who shows up when you can't stand on your own. My mom stiffened, just a little. I went into surgery believing I wouldn't be alone. I continued. I believed promises. A few glances shifted. Forks paused midair. I spent nights on the floor because I couldn't reach my phone. I hired strangers to help me shower. Not because my family couldn't help, because they chose not to. Someone coughed. My brother looked down. I'm not angry, I said, and that was the truth. I just stopped lying to myself. I reached into my bag and placed a small folder on the table. These are thank you cards, I said, for the people who actually showed up. I named the recovery nurse, the neighbor, the delivery driver who checked on me daily. Not my family. I realized something. I finished. Family isn't who promises. It's who stays. I sat down. The room didn't explode. It collapsed inward. Quiet. Heavy. My mom's face drained of color. She opened her mouth, then closed it. No defense sounds good against facts delivered gently. Afterward, people avoided her, hugged me longer, asked careful questions. My grandmother squeezed my hand and whispered, I'm proud of you. That night, my phone filled again. Messages. Missed calls. Apologies wrapped in excuses. I didn't respond because the most powerful part wasn't the speech. It was what I decided next. The fallout didn't come with shouting. It came with silence that felt heavier than yelling ever could. I woke up the next morning to a calm that felt unnatural, like the quiet after an earthquake when everyone is afraid to check what broke. My phone was face down on the table, buzzing occasionally, but I didn't touch it. For the first time, I wasn't rushing to manage anyone else's feelings. That alone felt like rebellion. By noon, my mom finally sent a message that wasn't performative. Can we talk? She wrote. I stared at those 3 words longer than I should have. Talking had always meant me listening while she explained herself. I replied with 1 word. Okay. We met at a cafe near my apartment, neutral ground, public enough to keep voices low. She arrived early, which used to mean she cared. Now I knew better. She started apologizing before sitting down, words tumbling out fast and messy. I let her finish. When she paused, waiting for comfort, I didn't give it. I told her exactly how it felt to be left, without raising my voice once. I told her about the fall, the floor, the strangers. She cried. But tears don't erase choices. She asked what she could do to fix it. I told her the truth, She wasn't expecting. Nothing. Not yet. I explained that trust doesn't reset with apologies. It rebuilds with consistency. I said I needed space, not guilt, not gifts, not speeches. She nodded, but I could tell she didn't like losing access to me. After we left, I blocked the family group chat. Not forever. Just long enough for the noise to stop. That's when the second phase of my decision began. I stopped being available in invisible ways. No last-minute favors. No emotional labor. I quietly redirected my energy back into my career. Within weeks, I landed a contract I'd postponed for years. The money helped, but the confidence mattered more. My mom kept trying to check in through side doors. Aunt texts. Brother jokes. I didn't respond. Silence was no longer punishment. It was protection. Then my mom sent one final message that changed everything. It said she wanted to make things right publicly. That's when I realized she still didn't understand. And that meant my quiet revenge wasn't finished yet. Because the next move wouldn't be about explaining my pain. It would be about letting her feel absence the way I did. I agreed to meet again, but on my terms. I told her I needed time and consistency, not performances. She said she understood. I wasn't convinced. That night, I slept deeply, knowing something irreversible had already happened. I had changed the dynamic. And once power shifts, it never fully returns to where it was. Still, one question lingered as I stared at the ceiling. Would she actually do the work? Or would she look for another shortcut? I didn't know yet, but I was about to find out. And when I did, it would force a decision I couldn't undo. Because forgiveness, I learned, is a privilege earned through action, not blood. And I was done giving it away for free. As the days passed, my mother grew impatient. Impatience reveals entitlement faster than anger. She wanted resolution without repair. I stayed steady. Every unanswered message was intentional. Every boundary was enforced calmly. Somewhere in that silence, she started to feel it. The distance, the loss of access. And that's when she made a move I never expected. A move that would test whether my resolve was real. She announced she was planning a family intervention. For me, that was the moment I smiled. Because now, everything was finally out in the open. And this time, I wouldn't be the one on trial. They were. I prepared for that meeting with the same care as my speech. Notes, receipts, and a calm they couldn't shake. Because if they wanted to talk about family, I was ready. Just not the way they expected. And as I closed my eyes that night, one thing was certain. This story wasn't over. It was only reaching the part where consequences arrive. And they never come quietly. The next conversation would decide what kind of relationship survived and who would be left behind. I took a breath, ready for the final shift. Because revenge isn't loud. It's deliberate. And the most powerful kind was just beginning, right after they thought it ended. The intervention wasn't meant to save me. It was meant to put me back in my place. They chose my mother's house for it. Of course they did. Neutral spaces don't favor anyone, and she needed home field advantage. When I arrived, my legs still aching in the cold, every car was already there. Brother, aunt, cousin, even a family friend who liked to call herself basically your second mom. I almost laughed. They really went all in. I walked inside slowly, deliberately. No limp this time. I wanted them to see I could stand. They sat me down like a child. Semicircle. Soft voices. Concerned faces. My mother held a box of tissues like a prop. Someone offered water. I declined. I wanted my hands free. My aunt started. We're worried about you. Classic opening. Vague enough to sound caring. I nodded and let her continue. My brother jumped in next. You embarrassed Mom. You made everything public. That wasn't fair. There it was. Not concern. Control. They talked for 20 minutes. About my tone. My distance. How I was holding on to resentment. How family doesn't keep score. I listened quietly, counting my breaths, feeling my heartbeat slow instead of spike. They mistook my silence for guilt. When it was finally my turn, my mother leaned forward. We just want things to go back to normal, she said. Normal. The word landed heavy. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder again. Thicker this time. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I simply placed it on the coffee table between us. I want to clarify something, I said. This isn't about embarrassment. It's about abandonment. They shifted. Uncomfortable. I opened the folder. Dates. Times. Screenshots. Medical instructions stating I couldn't be alone. A receipt from the recovery service. Another from the urgent care visit after my fall. Silence filled the room. Dense and undeniable. I didn't make anything public. I continued. I told the truth when asked. If that feels humiliating, that's not because I spoke. It's because of what happened. My brother tried to interrupt. I held up my hand. He stopped. That surprised him. I'm not cutting anyone off, I said calmly. I'm changing the terms. I explained the boundaries clearly. No volunteering me. No guilt-based contact. No pretending nothing happened. If they wanted a relationship, it would move at my pace. My mother cried. Real tears this time. But I didn't move. I had already done enough emotional labor for one lifetime. Then she said something that revealed everything. I didn't think it would hurt you this much. The room went quiet. That's the problem, I replied. You didn't think about me at all. No one argued after that. I stood up, thanked them for their time, and left. My hands were steady. My chest felt light. Whatever spell had kept me small in that family broke the moment I walked out the door. The next weeks were different. Invitations slowed. Requests stopped entirely. The silence returned, but this time it felt earned, peaceful. Then something unexpected happened. My mother started changing. Slowly. No grand gestures. No announcements. She asked before calling. She showed up on time. She didn't push. It was awkward and quiet and real. I noticed something else too. Without my constant support, the family dynamic shifted. Conflict surfaced. Tensions rose. I was no longer absorbing the shock. That's when my brother called. Not for money. Not for help. To apologize. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. I realized then that my revenge was never about punishment. It was about withdrawal. About letting people feel the weight of what I used to carry for them. And the most powerful part? I didn't need their validation anymore. But the story wasn't finished. Because one final test was coming. A moment where I'd have to choose whether to reopen a door or lock it for good. And that decision would change everything. Just when I thought the power had finally balanced, my mom asked for one last thing. And it forced me to choose who I was now. 3 months had passed since the intervention. My leg was stronger. My life was quieter. Too quiet some nights. Healing creates space, and space invites questions you can't distract yourself from. I had rebuilt my routine around myself, not my family. Morning stretches, client calls, evenings without emotional cleanup duty. I was stable, grounded. That's when my mom called. Not texted. Not hinted through someone else. She called directly, which told me she knew this mattered. I'm having surgery, she said. Minor procedure. Outpatient. I was wondering if you could stay with me the first night. There it was. The full circle. My body reacted before my mind. A flash of memory. The floor. The carpet. The unreachable phone. I didn't answer right away. Silence stretched. She waited. I understand if you say no, she added quickly. That was new. I told her I'd think about it. That night, I sat alone on my couch, leg propped up more out of habit than need. Revenge stories make it sound simple. Say no. Let her feel it. But real life isn't that clean. Saying no wouldn't punish her. It would define me. I asked myself what I actually wanted. Not what was fair. Not what would hurt. What would let me sleep afterward. I realized something uncomfortable. I wasn't afraid of being hurt again. I was afraid of betraying myself. So I made a counteroffer. I told her I could come, but only with conditions. Written instructions. Backup care scheduled. No assumptions. No emotional leverage. She agreed without arguing. The night of her surgery, I arrived with boundaries packed tighter than my overnight bag. I helped, calmly, efficiently. I didn't overextend. I left when my limit arrived. No heroics. And something strange happened. She respected it. No guilt. No comments. No rewriting history. Just quiet cooperation. Driving home, I felt lighter than I expected. Not triumphant. Clear. The next weeks confirmed it. She didn't relapse into old patterns. When she slipped, she corrected herself. Slowly, carefully. Like someone learning a new language. I didn't rush forgiveness. I let it grow where it wanted to. One afternoon, she asked if I'd like to come to dinner. Just us. I agreed. We talked about neutral things. Work. Weather. Nothing loaded. It felt unfamiliar and safe. As I left, she said something that finally closed the wound. I didn't lose you, she said. But I almost did. And that's on me. I nodded. That was enough. Here's the truth no one tells you about revenge. The best kind doesn't leave scorch marks. It leaves boundaries. It doesn't scream. It changes the rules so quietly that one day you realize you're no longer playing the same game. My family never apologized the way I once imagined. No dramatic confessions. No public admissions. But they changed. And so did I. I no longer rush to prove my worth. I don't rescue people from consequences they chose. I show up where I'm respected. I leave where I'm not. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that version of me on the floor, staring at the ceiling. I wish I could tell her what was coming, that she would stand again, stronger, quieter, unavailable to disrespect. The final test wasn't whether my family could change. It was whether I would, and I did. I thought the story had settled into peace, until I realized peace still demands one final boundary. For a while, things stayed calm, almost suspiciously calm. Family dinners were smaller, conversations shorter. No one leaned on me the way they used to. At first, I mistook that for distance. Then I understood it was respect learning how to stand on its own legs. But healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without bleeding. One evening, as I was wrapping up a client call, my phone buzzed with a notification I hadn't seen in months. A calendar invite. From my mother. Subject line. Family vacation planning call. My chest tightened. I opened it. The dates jumped out immediately. Late January. Peak season. My busiest work window of the year. And then the location. A ski town. Of course it was. The message beneath was casual. Almost cheerful. Thought it would be nice for us all to get away together again. Let me know. Again. I didn't respond right away. I sat back and stared at the ceiling. The same ceiling that once watched me lie helpless on the floor. This wasn't malicious. That was the problem. It was habit. Muscle memory. The assumption that time erases impact. Later that night, my brother texted, "You coming, right? Wouldn't be the same without you." There it was. The invisible pull. The expectation that I would adapt, rearrange, absorb. I realized this was the real final test. Not emergencies. Not apologies. Normal life. I slept on it. In the morning, the answer was clear. I called my mom. "I won't be joining," I said gently. There was a pause. Then confusion. "Is it the timing? We can adjust." "It's not that," I replied. "I don't want to." Silence again. Heavier this time. She started explaining. Traditions. Togetherness. How much it would mean. I let her finish. "I'm happy you all go," I said. "I just won't." She asked if she'd done something wrong. That question used to trap me. Not anymore. "This isn't punishment," I said. "It's preference." She didn't like that answer. I could hear it, but she accepted it. When I hung up, my hands shook slightly. Not fear. Residual programming. The fallout was quieter than I expected. A few disappointed messages. A few passive comments. No explosion. That told me everything. They were adjusting. I booked my own trip instead. Somewhere warm. Somewhere quiet. I worked mornings. Swam afternoons. Ate dinner alone without checking my phone. For the first time, I wasn't escaping my family. I was choosing myself. On the third night, my mom texted a photo. Snowy mountains. The same kind of cabin from before. Under it, one line. Hope you're enjoying your time too. No guilt. No pressure. I smiled. Back home, life felt different. Not lighter. Stronger. I noticed how often I'd once explained myself unnecessarily. I stopped doing that. I noticed how quickly I used to say yes. I slowed that down too. The revenge, if you could call it that, was complete. Not because they suffered, but because the dynamic that allowed my suffering no longer existed. The old version of me would have gone on that trip, limped quietly, helped cook, smiled through discomfort. The new version booked a window seat and didn't apologize. That's when I understood the truth. They didn't leave me after surgery because they didn't love me. They left because they were used to me surviving anything. And I changed that expectation forever. One last conversation remained. Not with them. With the audience listening now. Because if you've ever been the strong one, the reliable one, the one who's fine, this story isn't about revenge. It's about revision. And the final part of this story isn't what I did to them. It's what I stopped doing to myself. The real ending of this story isn't about what my family learned. It's about what I finally understood. People keep asking if I regret how I handled it, if I wish I'd been softer, quieter, more forgiving, faster. The truth is, I don't regret the boundaries. I regret how long it took me to believe I was allowed to have them. For years, my role was strength, the dependable one, the emotional shock absorber. I mistook usefulness for love and availability for loyalty. When I broke physically, the illusion broke with me. That wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. My family still exists in my life, just differently. I attend what I want. I leave when I'm tired. I don't explain every decision. And the world didn't end when I stopped overfunctioning. That was the biggest surprise of all. Here's what quietly changed everything. Once I stopped rescuing them, they started handling their own discomfort. They adjusted. They adapted. And I realized something important. My suffering had never been the glue holding us together. My silence was. I think back to that night after surgery sometimes. The dark, the pain, the loneliness. I used to replay it with sadness. Now I replay it with gratitude. Because that moment forced a reckoning I'd avoided my entire adult life. Revenge stories usually end with someone getting what they deserve. But real revenge is refusing to keep paying a price you never agreed to. It's not about punishment. It's about permanence. Once you see your worth clearly, you can't unsee it. If my mom had never left, I might still be the version of myself who overgave and underasked. I might still be confusing exhaustion for love. Her absence hurt, but it also freed me. And here's the part that matters most. If you're listening to this and thinking, that's me, then this isn't just my story. It's a mirror. You don't have to wait for a dramatic betrayal to choose yourself. You don't need a surgery, a crisis, or a breaking point. You're allowed to change the rules mid-game. You're allowed to disappoint people who benefited from your silence. You're allowed to heal in ways that make others uncomfortable. My life is quieter now, smaller in some ways, but it's honest. And peace, real peace, doesn't come from being needed. It comes from being respected. If this story resonated with you, take a moment. Ask yourself one question. Who benefits when you stay silent? The answer will tell you everything you need to know. And if you believe in quiet strength, intentional boundaries, and stories where the power shift happens without shouting, then you're in the right place. Before you go, support the channel by liking this video, sharing it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribing to Silent Revenge Lab stories like this only reach the right people when you help them travel. Thank you for listening. And remember, the strongest revenge is living well, on your own terms, without apology.